Well, I'll give you some background. My wife and I own a small AV and rental company here in Alberta. At peak, we have around 5 employees, and if everything goes well, by the end of this year, we'll be on track to hit just below $1 million in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a brief history. During the peak of COVID, my bank called me up one day and said, we are limiting our relationship, and gave me 10 days to pay our commercial mortgage that on our building we had. That was in 2020. Long story short, this past January, the building sold with a shortfall. In February, I sold my personal residence. April, they came to me and said, we still owe $220,000. So this past July, I was able to get a small loan of $90,000, and we were able to make a deal to pay this off. But when I did that and we got all the bankruptcy papers and court papers back, I felt I was going to have a weight lifted off my shoulders, and it didn't happen. So I guess my question is to you, when you went through bankruptcy and you had everything paid off and you're back on your feet, did you feel immediate release, or did it take time to get back and that emotional recover emotionally?
I might still be recovering emotionally. Yeah, that's a little too much truth. Well, I can remember a couple of things that enter into this. The whole thing is there's a lot of manure in the story, and the only good thing about that much manure is it's really fertile. You can really grow stuff, And so with this much poop, there's got to be a pony in there somewhere, It's just like, oh my gosh. I had fought, and you have too, it sounds like in your story, I had fought probably 40 creditors and been through foreclosures and lawsuits, and I was 28 years old, and I had a brand new baby, and our marriage was hanging on by a thread. And I had fought it for 2.5 years. So the stress level and the weight of it was so stinking heavy that, and I wasn't smart enough or sophisticated enough to understand the weight I was carrying. I just knew it was like I was holding my breath the whole time, kind of like under a trying to do a squat thrust of 500 pounds or something. I'm walking around with this bar across my shoulders, and I didn't even realize it was there. So when I actually signed the paperwork to file bankruptcy, I was driving away from the lawyer's office, and 2 stoplights later, I did feel like I had set down 500 pounds. It was like somebody had been standing on my chest and they got off. And because the fight was over, it was like the surrender was real. And there was nothing else I could do. I was done, and it was over. And there was this tremendous release, tremendous peace there. Now, that was that moment. And I can actually take you to that stoplight and said, right there. I know right where it is. I know exactly where it is. Still a stoplight there, 35 years later. Probably a few more between there in the lawyer's office now, but anyway, it's still there. And so that's a very clear moment. And then I went through, and it sounds like you're getting some of this too. So I may be not reading this properly, but I went through this thing where that I was a failure and I lost all my confidence. And that
confidence is definitely shaken.
Yeah, and I didn't feel I didn't want to walk into a room and knock stuff down anymore, I didn't want to push a deal over. I didn't want to, and I had to get back in the saddle to create some income to feed that little family, but it wasn't because I suddenly had an S on my chest because I had filed bankruptcy and gotten the weight off of me. It was the opposite. It's like, okay, who am I to be doing this? Who am I to be doing this? And I went through this period of time where I lashed myself over and over and over again with the lash. Metaphorically, I didn't physically do that, but I'm saying I beat myself up And that probably went on for some number of months, not years or decades. And then I had another moment where I went, hey, I did all I knew how to do. I didn't leave anything on the field. I didn't bankrupt as a shortcut. I fought it 2.5 years. They were coming the next morning to take the furniture out of our house, including the baby bed for the brand new baby. You know, I did all I knew how to do. Now, today, when I look back, there's stuff I would have, now I know to do that I wouldn't have known then. But with what I had, I used every tool in my belt. I left it all on the field. I've got to give that 28-year-old guy some grace. He did the best he could do with what he had to work with. And so I kind of went through this short process spiritually of just forgiving myself and going, okay, you're not as bad as this part of the story says you are. You're not as good as you used to think you were, but you're not as bad as this part of the story says you were. Now, what can I do to never be here again? And that started the whole thing of I don't borrow money. That started the whole thing of I'm 100% always generous. The next time a bank calls me, it will be to try to get me to buy them, not to call one of the notes, because there ain't any notes on Dave. I'm never going to be there again. And because you can't predict when the savings and loan industry completely crashes because the president puts out an edict and shuts down an entire segment of the industry, which started the crash of me. You can't predict COVID. And what do? I sell audio-visual equipment for events. Guess what? In Canada, there's no events. You people shut the whole thing down tighter than California. It was unbelievable. You had nothing you could have done. There's nothing you could have done to get prepared for that, except not owe the bank money.
Yep.
And you won't ever do that again, I hope. So,
no.
I kind of went through this release, forgiveness, manure everywhere. What am I going to, I got this many lemons. How am I going to make some lemonade? And let's learn a few lessons from this so we're never back here again. And I'm going to do an autopsy on the dead patient and figure out what happened so I never die this way again. And, one of the things I came up with is I don't want to have any relationship with any banker ever again. Never. The only relationship is I'm going to put some money down there in their bank and they're going to beg me to do anything that because see what I'm saying? So, the reality is there's part of this is your fault. The reality is part of it's COVID's fault. The reality is part of it's the banker's fault. And that's the reality. And we can assign percentages of blame if we wanted to, but it doesn't really matter. We're still sitting where we're sitting. And so I'm not going to expose myself to a government that's out of control again. I'm not going to expose myself to a bank that's out of control and has no soul whatsoever again. And then I can't blame me next time. And so when COVID hit us, I didn't have any banks calling me. And I'm not putting that in your face. I'm just saying because I went through the same thing you went through 30 years ago, right? So it's forgiveness. It's forgiveness. It's perspective. It's an autopsy. And then we start looking out the windshield instead of the rearview mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, our bank kind of just decided that they were getting rid of 25% of their customers during COVID, so it hit us.
Yeah.
We were the lucky quarter. So.
And you may be different, but I'm from Tennessee and I'm a hillbilly. I'll never forget that guy. I don't care where he is. I know him, and he's still in Nashville, and wherever he is, I'm going to stay completely away from. They will get no revenue off of this thing called Ramsey. There will never be any intersection with that guy ever again because he's got no soul, and I want nothing to do with that guy. And that bank was run by people that's that guy. And so if you don't want to be permanently angry with that guy, that's okay, but be permanently angry about the situation and not put yourself in a position where they can never do it again. Yeah, they screwed y'all. I mean, there's no question. I don't doubt that a bit. And it's the same thing happened in our situation, but a little different. But I mean, it's the same concept of we really don't care if we kill 10% of our customers because we'll make so much money on the other 90%. And that's just corporate freaking bankers, and so anyway, but what did you do wrong? Well, I mean, you signed a piece of paper that let them do that, called a mortgage.
Yeah.
So, and at the time you did it, you thought you were really smart. And me too, dude. Me too. It's like I've done some stupid butt stuff. At the time, I thought I was really brilliant. And it's like, God. But, here's the great news. The great news is you didn't fail at business. You failed at real estate.
Yeah.
So the business that you're running is still incredibly viable, and you're still incredibly good at it. Nothing you did was a business mistake. It was a real estate mistake, a debt mistake.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the way I crunched through this in my own mind. What part in this was mine? I didn't try to be a victim of them, but I also didn't take 100% of the responsibility because the reality is it wasn't 100% on me. I wasn't late.
Me either.
Yeah. Yeah, they just pull up and go, oh, well, we just don't like, and you're in the events business and we don't like you now because nobody can do events because we declared COVID. So once we declare COVID, you're all dead, so it's like, oh my God, it's horrible. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry you went through this. But the great news is it's done, and you can use the windshield, which is way bigger than the rearview mirror, and that's called forgiveness and grace of yourself. And you just move on and go to the next thing, and let's go make a whole stinking bunch of money and pile it up in somebody else's bank.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That's already been done.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And if that guy that works over there that did this moves to your bank's going to lose a customer. Because this guy can't be trusted. He's a freaking shyster, which is a banker. I mean, there you go. I mean, it's just, oh, God. It's unbelievable. Man, I feel for you. I know what you've been through and what you're going through, but it is a spiritual exercise to take this many lemons and turn them into lemonade. And that's turning the windshield into the way we're viewing things instead of the rearview mirror is the way we're viewing things. We're going to get what we get from the event. We're going to leave it back there and move to the next thing. And this is an event, and it's a pain in the butt. And I'm sorry you went through that. You're a good man, though. I can hear it in your voice. I can hear the way you carry yourself. You're a good leader. You're a good business guy. Move on with that. And this is just something that happened to a good guy. And let's go on. Cool, man. Thanks for calling, Paul. You're a good man. Did I mention that already? Yeah, you are.